Jellyfish are invertebrate sea creatures that can be found all throughout the world's oceans, named after their squishy bodies. Though many have a nasty and or potentially deadly sting, they're beautiful creatures. There's hundreds of species across the world, but my favorite is the Turritopus dorhi, a jellyfish that is biologically immortal and can live forever. Random question, but what if you became a jellyfish? That'd be pretty crazy, huh? Your life would kind of just become being a jellyfish and swimming around the ocean, eating krill and shrimp, and just kind of navigating your way through the ocean forever. What would you think about? The constant taste of salt water, wondering where your next meal would be? Would you miss your time as a human? Being able to hold someone's hand, feel the wind through your hair, the sun on your skin? How long would it take for you to forget who you really were? It doesn't matter, really. You're immortal. The ocean will wait as long as it needs to. Or would you simply never forget, being left to think about who you really are but can never be? Forever. Garten of Banban. Okay, so this video covers some pretty dark and serious topics, despite being about, Garten of Banban. So if you're not down for that, now's your chance to leave. Alright. Now then, let's talk about Garten of Banban. As you probably know, Garten of Banban is one of the games ever made. It's widely hated despite its massive popularity, with many of its biggest criticisms being its bugs, lack of content, but most prevailingly, the subject matter. The game is a very obvious riff on other mascot horror titles, mainly Poppy Playtime and Five Nights at Freddy's. The game currently has 3 installments, with a 4th one on the way, which might already be out by the time you watch this video. And personally, I love these games, despite their flaws. I go over why I enjoy the first one so much in this video, but while I was playing the latest installment, Garten of Banban 3, I noticed some things that just came across as a bit off. And after giving it some thought, well, I believe that Garten of Banban actually has some really interesting subtext that seems to critique gender roles. And I know that sounds crazy, right? How could Garten of Banban have like a serious socio-political message behind it? Well, it wouldn't be the first time the Euphoric Bros made a game about a much more serious topic. I refer to Introvert, a game depicting the events leading up to a school shooting, as well as Human Apocalypse, which has some themes of bigotry, I believe. The thing that led me to this discovery of Garten of Banban having gender role critique was just the sheer amount of characters that are opposite gender variants of other characters. For example, on the wall art we first come across, we see Banban with a female variant that is also a double-like character, Banbalina. These characters are basically identical, aside from a arbitrary color shift and a small bow on Banbalina's head. When everyone first saw this, people just assumed it was a parallel to other mascot horror characters with gendered variants. Huggy Wuggy and Kissy Missy from Poppy Playtime come to mind, as well as Foxy and Mangle / Funtime Foxy from the FNAF series. But this is not the last time we see something like this in the Garten of Banban series. In the first game, we feed Opila Bird her eggs, 6 eggs. And in the second game, we see 6 baby birds running around, one of which is blue, implying that there's a daddy bird. And sure enough, in the third game, we meet the father of Opila Bird's kids, Tarta Bird, a blue version of Opila Bird. And again, we have a character that has a variant that's basically just identical from their original self, besides a color change and having the opposite gender. And again in the same game, we see another gendered variant of another mascot character, Nab-Nab. Nab-Nab is the sort of bad guy spider version of Banban, the opposite, who is shown to be a violent character due to his loneliness, likely as a result of him being a scary spider mascot character. To address this problem, the people running the Garten of Banban facility created a new character to ease his loneliness, Nab-Nalina, a female variant of Nab-Nab, whose only difference is a color change and a bow on her head. 3 different characters get new gendered variants, who are only distinct from the original character due to an arbitrary color change, and in many cases, a simple bow to show their femininity. Now, sure, this is probably just an attempt to make more simple color variants of the already existing characters in order to get more characters out of the same design. But the thing is, the game already does this. We have numerous colored variants of both Jumbo Josh and Captain Fiddles, with none of these variants drawing any attention to their gender or gender expression. And these 3 examples are far from the only time the game seems to draw attention to gender roles specifically. One of the first characters we learn about through notes is a little boy who is friends with a little girl named Claire, and we are shown through the notes that this boy wants to literally fight Opila Bird in order to protect or impress Claire. In the initial chase from Nab Nab, the player must traverse a series of blue and pink arrows. You have to follow the direction the blue arrows tell you to go, while going in the opposite direction of the pink arrows. In this chase sequence, we have to associate the color blue with truth, and the color pink with lying. And as we all know, blue is for boys and pink is for girls. At least in the eyes of conservatives and toy stores, I guess. Some people have joked about this being a joke about women being liars, and honestly, I think they're correct. Not about women being liars, about it being a joke. At the very least, this chase shows the game is telling us that blue is meant to be the opposite of pink, fundamentally different. In the final chase sequence of Garten of Banban 3, we ride atop Tarta Bird while a baby bird rides atop her mother Opila Bird, running away from a bloodlusted Banban, desperate to eat our pancreas. In this chase sequence, in order to pass through each of the doors, one bird has to cross the line before the other one does. If the light is blue, we, riding the male Tarta Bird, speed ahead, passing Opila Bird, allowing the door to open. And in contrast, if the light is pink, we have to slow down, allowing Opila Bird, the girl bird, to pass us first. Now, as many people have pointed out, that seems really dumb, right? Why would anyone design a system in which the only way forward is to allow one gender to be ahead of the other one at a time? And yeah, it is dumb. And I think that's the point. Hold that thought while we talk about Stinger Flynn. Stinger Flynn is teased throughout the previous games as a dangerous, powerful, and untrustworthy character, and these expectations are very much met when we finally meet him in person. Stinger Flynn is the largest character we've seen so far, second only to Zelphius. He towers over Jumbo Josh and the other characters, but despite this, he doesn't seem to take pride in his size and power. Far from it, actually. When we first meet him, he commends us for making it so far, but warns us to stop and turn back, because he can't let us get in the way of his goals. And he shows us exactly what his goals are. He seems to allow us to enter his mind palace, which manifests as an island in the middle of the ocean, the beach. In the distance, we see a massive Zelphius rising from the ocean, but Stinger Flynn is much smaller. Still towering over a car, mind you, but a lot smaller still. He then starts talking about what he desires.
Welcome to my home. Or at least, what was supposed to be my home. Down in the dark and cold depths of the facility, the circumstances force you to do things that are out of your nature. When I feel that I'm straying too far off my original course, I head to the room I found you meditating in to mentally regroup. I come to this place, and then I am reminded that what I'm fighting for is worth all of this pain and suffering. Of course, none of this is real, but it all could be. I have never had actual sun rays touch my skin. Can you imagine that? And I yearn for the day that they finally do. I need the children to achieve that, but do not worry. I will practice the safest of procedures. Whatever I decide to do with the adults, I will make sure to keep one alive and sane so that the surviving children are delivered to the surface safe and sound. And of course, to deliver me to where I choose to be. Oh, to live the simple life of a completely brainless jellyfish, just munching on shrimp and avoiding getting eaten by turtles all day. You never appreciate how calming it is to have no conscience until you have one.
Despite being in this state where he's this massive monster, all he really wants is to become a mindless jellyfish, happily swimming in the ocean. He's working hard to enact this goal, and when he drifts too far from his path, he imagines a future where he can be in the body that makes him feel like he's himself, where he feels like he's free. You see what he's going through, don't you? Stinger Flynn is experiencing dysphoria. This character is trapped in a body that makes them feel like a monster, makes the world see them like a monster, and he's willing to do anything to become his true, authentic self. As a trans girl, I really felt for Stinger Flynn in this moment. I know all too well what it's like to feel like I'm trapped in my own body, to feel too big, too strong, to be seen as a monster. Like Stinger Flynn, I was also forced into being something that I wasn't, a boy. And It was torture. But there's another example in Garten of Banban, where a character loses control of their body. Do you remember what happens in the first Garten of Banban game? In the first game, we feed Opila Bird her own eggs. And after we do this, the eggs hatch into Opila Bird's baby chicks. I want you to think about what's really happening here. We are taking Opila Bird's eggs, shoving them back into Opila's body, and then, in the next game, these eggs have hatched into her children. Does that sound familiar to you? In many places across the world, and especially the United States, abortion rights are becoming a very serious issue for people. A lack of access to a safe and clean abortion can lead to people losing autonomy of their own body, being forced to give birth against their own will. And in cases of CSA or incest, it can cause disastrous consequences for the person giving birth and the baby. All because a woman is expected to mother children and give up their bodily autonomy. In this seemingly random moment in Garten of Banban, what seems like a menial task to progress to the next area is, in reality, us, the player, forcing a character to give birth against their will. Is it any wonder why she becomes hostile to us? So with everything I've discussed in mind, how there's numerous examples of gendered variants of other characters, themes of gender roles and distinctions between genders, the dysphoria of Stinger Flynn and the dark undertones of Opila Bird's chicks, what the hell does this mean altogether? What do these details tell us about Garten of Banban? Well, I believe all these details come together to contribute to an overarching theme of the unnecessary pain caused by gender roles in society. There is a concept in the field of gender study that I'm quite fond of called gender abolitionism, which is the idea that gender, not biological sex, gender is an outdated and harmful social construct that only exists to force people into boxes and make them act in ways that are deemed only acceptable through our gender roles and expectations. And gender really sucks. There are things about your biological sex that do give you indubitable characteristics. But gender roles tell you literally nothing about a person inherently. And despite that, society forces people into these bubbles and expects them to act in certain ways just because of what a doctor told their parents when they were born. Characters such as Banbalina and Nabalina illustrate this perfectly. Literally characters created to appease the rage of their male counterparts. And seemingly we force Opila Bird, one of the few female characters, to give birth in this game. I think these details illustrate just how much misery can come to people based on just their gender alone. And in general, being forced into a role you don't want to have to fill, like with the dysphoria that Stinger Flynn experiences. When viewed collectively, these elements point to an underlying theme of the game, a call for gender abolitionism. Garten of Banban appears to challenge the very concept of gender as a harmful social construct that limits individual expression and imposes unnecessary suffering. It prompts the players to question why society insists on categorizing and prescribing behaviors based on gender, when ultimately it tells us nothing intrinsic about a person. In a world where gender expectations continue to influence and affect people's lives, Garten of Banban stands as a testament to the power of art and entertainment to spark conversations and bring attention to vital social issues. Through its narrative and character design choices, the game challenges players to question and ultimately reject the limitations imposed by gender roles, encouraging all of us to strive for a future where gender becomes a thing of the past and individual authenticity is celebrated and respected above all else. This is why Garten of Banban is the most beautiful and truly artistic game ever created. Okay, now let's get real. This theory is most probably not true at all. I do genuinely think that there is a valid reading of this game that draws to at least some attention the absurdity of gender roles. But I know these interpretations are very uncharacteristically dark and likely a stretch. It's most likely that the reason for all these coincidences regarding gender in this game is just because that's how developers wanted the game to be. They wanted simple color swaps for new characters. They wanted blue for boys and pink for girls because that's widely considered the norm, especially for a kindergarten. And honestly, that's probably for the best. I did neglect to mention that Stinger Flynn kidnapped the main character's children, and it wouldn't really be a good look if they made the trans allegory character have their main goal to be to take someone else's kids away. It's just not a good look. But still, I do think there really is something here. And if there's not, then hey, that's just one of the most fun things about art, you know? You can interpret it in so many different unique ways, and even if they're not what the artist originally intended. So don't be afraid to look at the things you enjoy from another angle, because you may be pleasantly surprised at what you find. Or horrified. But regardless, I really hope you enjoyed this theory. It's really hard being the one true Garten of Banban fan online, so if you want to support the cause of defending Garten of Banban games, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye!